Hello.
Still waiting for Lance. Hold on, Viggo, we're still waiting for Lance.
Okay. How is everybody? Good.
I'm so sorry you can't see them, but I see more or less smiles on their faces. They all have to wear face masks, so I don't. They have to speak through with their eyes somehow.
Yes.
Lance?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Hi.
Turn your camera on.
I did.
There you go. Hi.
Happy to see you guys too.
First of all, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And of course, thank you for this wonderful film. It's really very a great thing to be able to present this film in Slovenia. Viggo, you wrote and directed the film. You also starred in it. You also wrote the score. You also produced it. And maybe just for starters, could you say something about the origin of the project? Just where does it come from? Was this a project you had for a long time in your mind? And did you always intended to do this to be your first film direction?
The reason it's the first one is because it's the first one I was able to find the money to make it with. The first time I wrote a screenplay and tried to make it as a movie that I wanted to direct was about 24 years ago. It was a different story. And I've tried over the years many times with different stories that I've written, even with Falling, starting when I wrote it first was in the middle of 2015, about 5 years ago, and after my mother's funeral. And I was trying to remember how I felt about my mother and my father and my family, and, things I could remember and things I'd learned from my parents, And I started writing the story, but then it became a story about a family that I invented and events that were fictional. But the foundation was some events that you see in the movie and some bits of conversation, real things, but most of it is made up. And then, like the other stories, I tried a couple of times and I almost got it made, but I couldn't get enough money. And Lance was the first actor that was involved in it, and he was with me all the way. And when the movie fell apart and we couldn't make it, when I tried again, he said, yes, I'll try again. And when we finally were able to make it, he still was with me, and which I'm really glad, because as you have just seen, it's an extraordinary performance that he gives.
Exactly.
It was better than I could have ever dreamed. I knew he would do something special, more interesting than any other actor, but I didn't know it would be that good. And so it was a long journey for all of us who were working on this movie. We had to be patient, and then I was concerned. Then the pandemic hit. We had this movie we'd finished, we were happy with. We even got invited to the Cannes Film Festival. I thought, wow, great. And then the pandemic came, and then there's no Cannes Film Festival. And during the pandemic, the lockdown, I thought, maybe nobody will ever see this movie on a movie screen the way we would like them to see it and hear it. But there you are. You've just seen it in a movie theater. So I'm really happy that you did. And I'm happy that little by little, our story is going to go to screens in different countries and maybe other movie theaters around Slovenia. And hopefully people will find something personal to relate to that has to do with their family or their society. I don't know.
Viggo, you say you were very convinced that Lance was the man to do to play the role of Willis. Lance, how did you feel about this role when Viggo first told you about it? Were there any particular?
That's a good question.
Be honest.
No, I felt like I was going to go over Niagara Falls in a barrel. I really did. I felt like the responsibility of that role was very, very big, and I didn't know if I had to. In the States, we call it the chops to do it. You know, I mean, can I really pull this off? But I had to feel that, and I just decided I'm going to just surrender and have the adventure, and couldn't have been with anybody better, you know, than Viggo, because he's sane and he's an artist. So it was really good.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole adventure was. I can tell you now, it was really good. You know?
Were there any particular things that you connected to the role or to that part of that father?
That I did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you connected.
Yeah. The part of it, I had to uncover, discover, and surrender. Those three things, because otherwise I would be dealing with all the kind of things that happened to me in my youth, in my childhood. And so those things were necessary. And I really felt like this is a great opportunity to get rid of them, get rid of the pain of it. And Willis certainly was in a lot of pain. I mean, that character, sure. So I was willing to visit it.
So in a way, it was also a kind of therapeutic process for actually both of you. I mean, in the sense of dealing with
for me. It was different. No? It was very different. Therapeutically, sit back, collect the money, and nod at you and say, "That's wonderful." No.
Well, I think we connected on a personal level. Both Lance did, and obviously it came from a personal place for me. But the best thing about it, in terms of the overall effort, was for both me and Lance. I think it was good. Is that our team, our crew, the whole team that was making the movie, and all the actors, they connected with the story too in their way, and they would tell us stories about their family. You know, things they'd experienced that were similar or felt emotionally similar to what we were telling. And that was helpful, because it wasn't like we were just actors with a crew that was just another job to them. This was unusual for them. They got, right? They even got, you know, they were moved sometimes by some of the scenes, right, Lance? I mean, it was...
Well, I remember so distinctly, we had a very difficult scene to do where we're actually fighting and stuff, but it wasn't a normal fight. It was an explosive fight, and the pain of it that was so prevalent in the scene filtered into the whole crew. And I remember leaving the scene and walking around a corner, and there was a video village where they were watching the scene on video, you know, on a screen, and they were crying. And they were crying the same way we were in our hearts, you know. So I suddenly realized we had become a family. I mean, this was a story we were telling. Almost, I imagine it's what happens in your audience, like today, that there is some connection. There's a lot of connection in that movie to everybody's lives, not just theirs, you know, not just our movie. But we're being honest enough to where that movie will never betray you. It's not acting. It's a journey that we all went
on. Lance, you've played in a lot of movies. Playing with an actor-director, does it make that difference? Is it?
Yes.
Yes.
And I know where you're going with that. Yeah, it does, because my trust in Viggo was 100%. I never bowed out or chickened out or quit mentally at any time. I'm willing to go through it, and he was willing to partner with me to do this, because I couldn't have done it without him. He wrote it and he directed it and he was in it. And I care about him a lot. needless to say. I really do.
But so also,
Same for me, you know. It just wouldn't, I mean, we might have made a good movie if someone other than Lance had played it, but it would not have been as good as this one. No way. This became very personal for the two of us, the way we worked together. And, you know, I wasn't going to act in it. That wasn't my first idea. But when I finally thought the second time around, we're going to try to raise the money, I thought, okay, well, if I do it, then maybe we'll have a better chance to get the money in. And that did happen, and that did help. But it was also good because Lance and I were friends by then already, and we'd worked hard on this script a lot. So by playing the part of John in those scenes that they have together, many scenes, long scenes, I wasn't just directing and trying to help and listen to him and help him, you know, play his part. I was actually his acting partner. Like we were in the shit together. Like we had to find a way. Sorry to say that word, but we had to find a way to solve problems in the scene as acting partners. It wasn't just me telling him what to do. It was both of us helping each other do it.
So it was a kind of complicity which you both felt also as persons and as actors and in the whole project.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So we got a 5-year sentence to wait to do the movie, and then we escaped together and did the movie.
Yeah, the sentence was all the time waiting. And then we went into and then we had they put us in solitary confinement together.
Yeah, right.
And we beat the shit out of each other. And they finally said, oh, we can't handle these guys. And they let us go.
They let us out.
Great.
It's so great. I wish I could see the audience.
Maybe we can do a little pan here. Just a second. Can you wave?
Yeah.
So you see them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, the thing is, so because of the restrictions, we are allowed only to have, actually 63 people are in the hall. That's the maximum we could take. But we're streaming also the talk because a lot of people wanted to be with us tonight. So they will be coming to see the movie in the coming days. Maybe one thing connected to that before, you said that you actually had, Viggo, the ambition for many, many years to make a film, to direct a film. This was the first one. What is the thing in the directing that appeals you the most? Is it the imagining, the conceiving, the writing the project, or is it then actually the shoot, the work with the crew, the work with the actors, the post-production? Is there something what really drives you, what makes you want to direct? And is this the thing, the next step now after this first film, that you are set to?
I like all of it. I mean, all the things you mentioned, I enjoyed. And I think it's just I like to tell stories, you know, and in different medium, you know, like Lance is an excellent ceramicist, a potter. He makes things with his hands, with clay, and makes beautiful things, and it makes him happy. It's his way of communicating in a way, I think, with himself and with others who happen to see what he makes. And I feel the same way about all different art forms I kind of get involved in. And, you know, movies, I've liked them always since I was a kid. My mother took me to a movie theater the first time when I was 3. And I remember even when I was 3 and 4, my mother would talk about the story. She would say, well, why do you think that happened? And I said, oh, I don't know. And I try to answer her. Well, I'm surprised that we know he was feeling that way about her. Why didn't he tell her? I'm surprised, and aren't you? And I'm like, yeah. Or Lawrence of Arabia. I remember at the intermission, you know, these long movies where they have a break in the middle and you go get a Coca-Cola or whatever. And she said, now these English guys, the British Army, I don't think they're really going to help Lawrence and these Arab guys. I have a funny feeling about that. What do you think? And I said, well, I think Lawrence, you know, and his Arab friends, they really know the desert. And they know the camels, and, you know, I was fascinated by the camels. but they know this desert, and these English soldiers, they'll probably get lost. I mean, I think those guys are going to be okay. So we'd have these conversations about story, like we were two screenwriters or something, amateur screenwriter. And this is the way I've always looked at movies. I'm interested in what's going on, and I don't want to be told everything. I don't want to be told what to think or what to feel. I want to be part of telling the story. So I like movies where you get some information and it's well enough done that the photography and the acting and the writing, the first 10 minutes or so that I'm involved, I'm kind of, okay, I'll take part. I will fill in the blanks here and there, and I'll decide for myself what the dynamic is between the characters and what's it about. I'll decide. In other words, the movie is no longer going to be the director's, it's my movie now. And I like it if audiences do that. And as a spectator, that's what I like. I don't like directors who show me things. I like directors who make me interested in seeing things for myself. So that's what drives me to do it. I've wanted to try it for a long time, not because I wanted to control the story, but just because as an actor, I've always been nosy. I'm interested in what the shot is and the camera, what size lens, why a red shirt? Why are they doing that? Or why don't they only do 2 takes? Or why is the sound that way? Or, just different things. I mean, I'm always interested in how they do it. And so I figured, well, one day I'd like to be the one who's responsible for the decisions, and copying the directors I've seen that do a good job. They always listen to everybody, because you never know where a good idea could come from anybody in the crew. Or an actor could say to you, I mean, this happened with me and Lance, where there was something about a scene or a sentence that wasn't quite comfortable, and we would make an adjustment. Or he couple times he came up with something. He would tell me stories. He's a great storyteller, and he told me a story about, say, his baby girl, and he said something he said to that girl, and we use that line in the movie, and it's a very important line. And it's being open. Some directors, even some very good ones, I don't know if you've worked with people like this, Lance, ever, but they can be very good. But when someone suggests something or asks something, if it's an actor or a crew member, they get defensive, like they feel like it's a threat or a criticism. Yeah, but the best ones feel like it's help, like it can only make their thing better. And do you remember something like that?
Yeah, when I was on Close Encounters with Steven Spielberg.
Oh, right.
And I was playing Francois Truffaut's bodyguard, So anyway, I got this idea when the mothership was coming down and all of that, and the little aliens are running around. I ran up to Steven and I said, look, why don't I get one, put my coat over him, and take him into the toilet? So we got proof we've got him. Oh, we had this. And then he went, he shut down completely, and he said to me, no, Lance, that's another movie.
It's not this kind of movie. It's not that kind of movie. Well, yeah. You were like a CIA type guy, right? Or FBI, and you probably would have done an autopsy and wanted to see what's inside these things or something, right?
Help the world,
Science.
Yeah, right.
Well,
it's a miracle. The whole thing about acting and doing a movie, it's a journey, it's an adventure. It's also a revealer. It's while it's happening. It's not after. It's really while you're doing it. And I remember so clearly, I've never felt this particular way before. But I surrendered to it. This is the way it's got to be. This is the way it's going to be. And so it's always the adventure, I think. Yes. Even the whole crew felt that way. They didn't know what was coming next. They didn't.
Actually, one of the very beautiful things is also your relation with Monica. I mean, the children in the film are really, really something. I mean, are really, really special. Can you tell something about that?
The feeling of the innocence and the kind of sweetness and kindness of a child can absolutely disarm all of the frustrations of life. It can really do that, because it did. With Monica, I felt so at peace. She made no demands on me. She was just there for everybody. And you can't deny that. You can't not be taken by it. And she swept me up in her sweetness. And whereas adults were constantly trying to fix me, like I had the plague or something. Why can't you just leave me alone and let me eat my, you know?
She
Monica,
she didn't judge you.
not at all, not at all. I felt like the world was coming at me, you know, like in a truck.
Yeah.
You know.
Nice.
Anyway, but I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. I mean, actually playing with children, Viggo, you have also a track record with that. I mean, Captain Fantastic, also The Road. I mean, what makes playing with children so special to you?
Well, there's an openness. There's less cynicism, less judgment because they've had less life experience.
Absolutely.
And so they're, you know, some people, you know, there was a famous comedic actor from the early part of the 20th century named W.C. Fields. And he used to say, never act with animals or children because the children will drive you crazy, but most importantly, they'll steal the scene because they're so interesting, right? I guess.
Yeah.
And I kind of disagree. I love acting with kids because, and there's all kinds of kids. Not all kids are as innocent or as calm or whatever, or as open, but there's all kinds of kids. And there were all kinds of kids in our movie. Each of the children in the Falling, as people, as human beings, were different. And as a director, I had to adjust, like you do if you're an adult that's been put in charge of a class of children, or you're babysitting a bunch of kids. And each one you have to talk to them and find their language, you know, like we should do this with adults, but we don't do it enough sometimes because we shut off or we judge or we look at them. Oh, I know what kind of guy that is. I don't even want to talk to him. It's like maybe he's not that kind of guy, you know. Children don't tend to judge as easily, you know, especially when they're really little. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that. It's like they pull it out of me. They make me better if I pay attention to them, you know.
W.C. Fields also drank vodka out of an orange, you know, so he wasn't connected to anybody.
He didn't have much he didn't have much time for children.
No. Or dogs.
Or anything. Yes.
On the end credits, Viggo, you thank a lot of people, including a lot of directors. One director is not listed, but you casted him as the Doctor. Can you tell us something about how special he is for you as in your work as an actor and in what you've taken from him as a director?
Well, the list, first of all, the list at the end is not meant to be like my list of my favorite directors. I'm not leaving someone out. They were people who actually had read the screenplay or had some connection to this particular project. They were helpful. There's also lists of places that they allowed us to film in, like the diner and the hospital and the places. So I just list them, but also people who influenced me or helped me get my thoughts together for how to tell this story. Like Agnès Varda from France, great filmmaker. I met her very late, right, not long before she died, and she said something. She put in words what I felt, because I said to her, I'm going to direct. What are you doing next? I said, I'm going to direct a movie. She said, oh. I was on a plane flight with her, sitting next to her. Her daughter knew I was a fan, and she said, do you want to change seats? So I got to sit next to her. And we talked for like almost 3 hours. And she was not doing well. She would doze off once in a while, but she was talking about life and death and future projects, even though she knew she was dying, basically. And then she asked me what I was doing. I said, I want to direct a movie. I'm hoping to direct a movie next year, Falling. And she said, she put in very plain language exactly what I hadn't been able to put into words until then. She said, but I knew it's what I liked about movies, or how they should be, or how I'd like to make the movie. She said, she said, don't, whatever you do, don't show things to the audience. Invite them by the quality of your storytelling to see. for themselves. You know, she's the one that said that, put those words, and that allows me now to talk about it with some sounding like I'm intelligent. You know, whereas before I would take a half an hour and I couldn't make the point, but I knew what I meant. She explained it for me. So, and David Cronenberg, you know, he wasn't involved in the sort of, I didn't show him the screenplay. I showed him the screenplay when we were casting, not long before the shoot. And I said, you know, as you know, I'm here in your hometown and I'm about to make a movie. There is a part in it that I would love you to play if you want to, because I think you'd be great. But it's not a favor I'm asking. I'm actually just offering you a job as an actor, because I know you're a good actor. And you're just right for this part, I think. But if you don't want to do it, we're friends. It's no big deal. It's like even if Lance had said to me at some point, you know what, I've changed my mind, I would have been sad, but you got to accept that. You got to respect people and their wishes, right? And so I said, if you don't want to do it, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll find someone else. But if you like it, that'd be great. He read it, liked it a lot, and came in and acted with us. And we had a great time. And if you don't know who he is, when you're watching the movie, you just go, oh, that's a good scene. And that guy, well, that seemed like a proctologist. He was good job. If you know who he is, it has a special resonance as a cinephile or an audience member. You go, oh, wow, that's weird. And I don't know if I'd want him to stick his finger in me, you know, when I think about his movies. But there's an interesting, I don't know if you want to say this or not, Lance. Lance has an interesting, do you want to?
Yeah. He just looked like an old skinny guy, you know, an old skinny man. And our proctologist has been doing it his whole life, and I didn't trust him, naturally. I mean, but anyway, I didn't know who he was. I had never seen him.
You just thought he was an actor who was right for the part and did a good job,
yeah,
right?
It was really good, and he dipped his finger in Vaseline and came at me. And I didn't know who he was. So it's funny because then a while later, I saw him on an interview with Viggo, a Zoom or a Skype interview. And I went, that's Cronenberg.
That's the guy.
That's the guy. I'll never forgive him.
He didn't know, because he didn't know what he looked like. He knows his movies, but he didn't know what the guy looked like. No. So he just thought he was an actor who was good at his job, but he had no idea until many months later, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't live under a rock, but
no, I know, but you just didn't know what he looked like. You knew what his movies looked like.
He looked
right.
He was a nice guy. I liked him.
Yeah, he's funny.
Maybe at this point we should ask the audience for questions.
As many as they want.
Wait, we have to wait for the microphone.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, there's a question up there.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. I was looking for this.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. It's amazing that our movie's being seen in Slovenia, right?
I know.
It's great.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked in Slovenia?
No.
Close by, though, right? Haven't you worked in Romania or Bulgaria or somewhere in Eastern Europe?
Yeah. I worked all through there. They were making a lot of UFO movies, you know, so it's like with wood.
Okay.
Sets,
we're ready for the question.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi. Yeah. First of all, an amazing movie. Had an older dad. We bonded through all your movies, so for that I want to thank you. And then in the movie, I know it's a simple scene, but the crossword puzzle, me and my dad solve a lot of them, and we bond all through them. And so what was the deeper meaning of that scene, because it's one of the more emotional ones in the movie? Thank you.
Wow.
Well, that was something that Willis's character did, and there actually was another scene that you see him doing a crossword puzzle that didn't end up in the movie. It's one of the only things that we shot that didn't. But and I think we'll put that as a DVD extra, actually. And in the scenes, he's in the middle of doing a crossword puzzle as well. It's just something he does. You can actually see on his kitchen table that there's a lot of them, half done. Like, it's something he does a lot. And it was a way of making a connection finally of acknowledging that he was in fact aware of the fact that his son was trying to help him, I guess, and he was acknowledging that, and he was also accepting a little bit of help, but he was accepting that because his son was accepting also that he needed to back off, you know? So there was kind of a deal was made, and it was, even though he couldn't say the words any more than he could the day before or his whole life, thank you, and I love you, he was saying both of those things in a way. That was a way of doing it, and I think it was, sometimes it helps for an actor to have something physical that ties them emotionally as a way of communicating to what's happening in the scene. I don't know how you felt about that, Lance, the idea of the crossword.
It was such a gentle scene that I was only seconds away from tears.
Yeah.
Because I felt all those things. One was that I forgave you for running the bathtub over, and I forgave you for trying to help me, like you said. But there was also the moment of, I wish that I had words to tell you how I feel, other than rejecting you, like saying, you need to go back to California.
Yeah, right.
You accepted it. You didn't fight me on it. And so, but you can see how delicate some of these scenes were, because we didn't know that was going to happen, but it did.
Yeah.
It really, if I hadn't had glasses on, I probably would have cried.
Yeah.
But they were a barrier.
No, but you can see it. You can see it. You can see it in your eyes, and it's in your voice, and it's in the rhythm, the musical rhythm of when and how you say it, your pauses, the way you look, and you can feel that emotion. And in fact, if you had really cried, it might have been less emotional. I mean, you were about to cry. You know what I mean? It was stronger. That is what you did was perfect. I mean, I remember when you did that take, I went, "Oh my God!" You know.
That man that just told us that and asked that question, that's proof of something.
A connection.
We didn't try to make you feel a certain way. We were living it, and you connected with it, and it's important to you. That was motivating you in latching on to that movie, and I'm just grateful as hell that you brought that up. I really am, because that's exactly, we weren't pandering for any reason in that movie. If we could get it, just not do it. And you picked out of it what means something to you. And that's part of the gift of making movies, that you did that.
Yeah.
It's great. It really is. And we didn't betray you by the time we got to the end. We didn't betray.
No.
Because once you betray somebody in an audience who has real feelings and real connection, well, they don't forgive you right to the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Do it once.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, we did it for ourselves. We were looking at each other, like in that scene and other scenes. And I needed to believe you what you were doing. And you needed to believe me what I was doing,
Yeah.
So we are essentially doing it so that we would believe each other, And if you do that and connect, then there's a chance that the audience will believe it also, I think.
How did it feel in the same part of the movie? I mean, in the second part of the movie, when when you have the hyper scene and then the fight scene, and this the scene with Red River, where you have this parallel actually conflict father-son, but at the same time also resolve father-son. How how was it to play in this environment when you have actually a situation of Wayne Clift,
John Wayne, Montgomery Clift, yeah.
And it was all the time there, and you took really the very end, where then finally Wayne will give up telling what other people should do, you know, stop being bossing. And
well, that was, I mean, for the people who understand English, I don't know if that was probably not subtitled, or was it? And what Wayne is saying, or was it?
I saw the film in Berlin. I didn't see a subtitled version, actually, so I have to ask the audience, was it subtitled?
I think, well, if you understand English,
yeah.
Then there's that, it's sort of funny, you know, because, you know, the father goes away pissed off because I am telling him what to do. I'm telling him what to eat, and he gets really angry about it. And, you know, he's right in his way about it. It's his house, you know, it's his life. And I'm trying to help, but he wants to, you know, he wants some freedom to, like, I'm going to decide what I'm going to eat. And then, of course, he leaves, and I'm upset because he's really yelled at me, and I just feel like I'm a little boy again or something, which is why I wanted to have the scene that comes after it when I am a little boy, because I remember that. But then there you hear John Wayne saying, when are you going to stop telling people what to do? Or Cliff says it, you know, whatever. And it's funny to me, you know, because that's exactly what John is doing in a way. And he doesn't hear it, but the audience hears it. When are you going to stop telling people what to do? And then the other character says, right now. You know, it's like, so maybe that's the beginning of something. But he hasn't learned his lesson yet. They still have to have a fight, and they still have to have that breakfast scene and the jigsaw puzzle. So there's a ways to go yet, but things are starting, the ice is starting to break.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll break in many pieces, and some people will get hurt, and then the ice will melt, and then it'll just be a river, and it'll be summer, and you can swim, and you won't even remember. Maybe you will remember, but the new people, like the Monicas of the world, they'll only see a river in the summer. They won't know that it was icy and someone fell through the ice and died. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah, I see another question.
This is cool.
Hi, thank you for the movie and for all your movies, both of you. They really are inspiring, and so is this one. I'd just like to ask how hard it was not to tell everything you would like to tell. How thin was the line to keep the secrets so that we have to puzzle them on our own? How hard was that? Thank you.
Well, I'll let Lance speak to the acting part or the way he built his character in regard to that question. But as a director, as a screenwriter of Falling, it wasn't that hard. I mean, I always shy. I was always trying to see how much I could take away, balanced with some scenes that are extremely long compared to most movies, like scenes that require patience from the audience, but also require from the filmmaker and the actors. They better do this well, because if I'm going to have to listen to a 10-page scene, it better be interesting. You know, something better be happening. It better be honest. It better be right emotionally. And but generally, you know, as in the part when I had the first draft of the screenplay, which I think Lance read.
I did.
Yeah. And then I gradually started, as we started talking about it and I started thinking through, I kept taking little things away, little by little. And we did a lot of that before we even started shooting. So that in the editing room, I didn't really have to take away as much as you normally would. You know, there was one little short scene that lasts a couple of minutes, but otherwise it was lines here and there, like that long scene with the whole family around the table. You know, we lost some of that. It was long. It just didn't need to be there enough. Like it was that editing process. I also have a publishing house, and I publish books, and editing is, and I write poetry. And it's like when I first write a poem, even if I think it's very exact, I always go, I let it be for a couple of days, and I come back, and I invariably go, no, that line can go, and that word can go. How much can I take away, and I'm still saying what I need to say? Because if I have just enough to say what I want to say, then the reader or the audience member of a movie will do the rest. If it's good enough, they'll be interested in doing the rest of the work with me for themselves. What do you think, Lance, about this? How much do you show and not show as an actor?
Well, I remember distinctly talking to my mother. You know, at times it was rare, but she would get a desire to talk about the past. And the things that I remember her talking about were all very, very subjective. Like, I had to sell shoelaces during the Depression and cigarettes, you know, single cigarettes, which is very, very close to where poverty lies. I mean, if you have to sell cigarettes, you know, and she was dressed like a little girl at 16. How humiliating was that for her? And I remember those conversations, and they were absolutely, some of them so poignant to me, and others were very embarrassing. My mother married 5 times, so she was a bag full of wild animals. She would come out with stuff that, man, even when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand it, but thought back on it years later. And there are some moments in it, in the movie, that was so similar and actually happened in my life, where I had to tell an alcoholic uncle of mine. I hated him. I took a thing of pepper and was throwing pepper on him because I was so sick of the sound of his whining voice. It just drove me crazy. So I didn't want to be anywhere near him, and I always resented him, and I couldn't let go of the resentments. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I have been in almost subterranean conversations with people because all of them had come through the Second World War and the Depression, and they had started there, and so I call that sort of ether talking at 4 a.m, you know, and so I was witness to that. So it didn't frighten me to suddenly launch into something because I had experienced that awkwardness, you know, like saying, so, you know, do you have any hard liquor? And he said, I thought you don't drink hard liquor. Well, I want it now. Are you going to have one with me? And I go, oh, I see. You don't drink anymore. Anybody but you. You know, and so there's that little edge on it that says, you know, this is painful. Why are we doing it? You know, this is painful. And so it leads down a garden path that's painful, not friendly. You know, it's like, yeah, you know what I mean. I mean, I think everybody, even in your audience, has these conversations that scar them over the years, and they never forget them. I mean, that's why my attraction was to hang out with the innocents, and that's when I felt, okay, I can go down to the beach now and sit on the beach because I had a positive thing from her. You know that stuff. It's an amazing adventure that we were on. Amazing. Yeah. Because we were right for what we were doing, all of us. You know.
That's what attracts you to the arts, maybe?
Yeah, it is. It's what I think film and acting and the arts of laboring with pottery, which is, it's not about commerce. It's about the connection with your life. I want to be proud of my labor, and I want to have the adventure of not knowing where this is going or what's going to happen. Yeah. I need that adventure because I'm capable of it. I am. I've done all kinds of characters. I think in 150 movies that I've done, I really tried in every character to do something, to risk something. Mm-hmm. So, and you get better at it, I guess. I don't know. I'm not judging. I can't judge. I hope that made sense.
Thank you so much.
And you have gotten better and better. You were always good as far as I'm concerned, but nobody could have played Willis better than you did. That's for sure.
Thank you, Viggo. No, thank you. I'm proud.
I mean, actually, in the scene, you also talked about one to me, very powerful moment is also when Willis asks John if he is sure that he is gay. You know, that you have this look back from you, Viggo, which is like very, you know, it's like,
I don't know what to say.
you know, what? And, but at the same time, it has this sincerity of the character of who would still really sincerely ask this question.
Yeah, he's trying to help me, I think.
Yeah.
Give you a chance. Give you a chance. If you'd said, I'm not sure, I would have got up.
Are you sure? Because I don't answer, and I'm like, oh my God, now I really don't know what to say.
Oh, man.
I better not say anything because we're just going to get in a fight. I'm going to bed.
I know. God.
But that was beautiful how you did that. You know, it's like the line you say in the beginning, which kind of sets up, well, you don't say it, Sverrir, the Icelandic actor who plays Willis when he's younger, and who worked, you know, Lance and he worked together. They met very long before we started shooting. We
They came to the house and met my ravens. I have ravens.
Yeah. He feeds them. He has ravens and yeah. And so Sverrir went there and they spent all days, like I was filming them and they were talking, and I would play for each of them. I would play John, I would play Gwen, I would play all the different characters, and they would be being Willis. But I could see them already as actors looking at each other, and there was some kind of fusion beginning even that day. By the time we started shooting, they had certain things about their walk, like Sverrir had thought about, okay, that walk and that facial expression and that look in his eye, but when he was younger, what would that be? You know, and so that was very, very interesting. What the hell was it? I don't remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter.
It's late.
I hope you answered her question, did we? Was she satisfied?
So, what was the question?
Was there another question? Another question? Yes, there's one more question.
I don't know if we answered it, Lance.
I hope so. Because it was so precise. It was like really on a button, and I think we did. I think we went down that road.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Hi. So, throughout the process of making this beautiful film, have you learned anything about the generation gap and how to approach it?
I think every new generation, it'll always be this way. Every new generation has to find a way. Each member, each individual of a new generation has to, even if their parents were nice and they had a wonderful family life, they have to crawl out from under, by force of will, from under the shadow, sometimes heavy shadow, of the previous generation, because they have to make their own way. That's just nature, you know. And I think that's always true, even in good, happy families. You know, there's a point you have to find your own self, and by finding yourself, you have to reject some of the past. You know, you may later come around and go, well, maybe that wasn't so bad. But there's a time where you have to say, no, I want to do something different. That's how you become an adult person. You know, you become your own person. But just like I think every new generation has to find, I mean, racism, tribalism, prejudice, even if you make all the good laws in the world and maybe you have a good period in society, right now I would say societies all over the world are in a particularly bad period where communication is not good, where you have a lot of politicians who take advantage and create conflict, and it's not a particularly good period in the United States or most anywhere else that I know of. But even in good times, every new generation has to learn how to get along with other people, because there's something human instinct. Even if your parents were good, at some point kids end up having mistrust of people who look different, who sound different. You know, I mean, racism or prejudice, the vocabulary changes with each generation. Even the target changes. Okay, now we hate these people, or that person, or that type of thing, that country, that language, whatever. But it's, you know, it evolves. It changes its face. hatred and mistrust. And you have to learn. That's part of growing up. You have to learn to play nice, to get along. If you're lucky, you will. Not everybody does, and that's sad, but it never goes away. And so each generation has to figure it out. The generation gap, there's a generation gap, obviously, between Willis and John, but it's not just a generation gap. It's not just because they're different ages. It's because they have a difference of opinion in terms of how they remember Gwen, for example. Gwen is and so does Sarah have a difference of opinion with Willis. They have a different feeling about her, at least what they express. And this is why, even though the story is, the main character is Willis, and the main two characters are Willis and John, the emotional center for me, the conscience, or the moral axis, fulcrum of the story is Gwen for me. It's the mother. And this is where it started. It started after the funeral of my mother. I started writing this. So she's there all the time. This is what they argue about in part, what they get upset about with each other about. And you see at the end of the story, obviously, Gwen, no matter what he has said to us, Gwen is not only just as important to him as she is to John and Sarah. She's even more important on a much deeper level, on a much more intimate level, obviously. So it's a difficult thing, but that's part of the problem, is the connection. And communication is an issue I wanted to explore. How do you communicate with someone who doesn't seem to have any interest in communicating with you, who doesn't see you, doesn't accept you? What do you do? Every person decides, you can cut that person off, whether it's family or a friend or a professional colleague, or you can decide, no, I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to be just as stubborn about wanting to communicate as they are about not wanting to communicate. Now, you might get no results. You might not get anywhere. But if you cut them off and don't talk to them anymore, then you're certainly not going to get anywhere. So that's really part of what I think we were exploring, that gap.
Thank you. I think we should, there are still 2 questions on the balcony. Is it okay? Can you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for the beautiful movie for me too. I have a question about the nature scenes in the movie, because one of them particularly stuck in my head after the movie. It's the scene with the birds wanting to be fed by their mother, and it's kind of complementary to the whole movie. Like they want some love, but they're not getting it. So the scenes intentional or just like chance shots that ended up in the movie?
No, I'll tell you what happened. Because I knew we were going to have a short shoot, and because I wanted images in the memories, the subjective memories of the different characters, well, John, Willis, and Sarah, really, and then some objective memories, shared memories. And I wanted different seasons, spring, summer, autumn, So even though we didn't have the money to shoot the movie yet, the year before, I got together with the cinematographer and the art department, the designer, Carol Spear, who I'd worked with Cronenberg a few times, and she's done all his movies, most of them. She's great. She's Canadian. And with Marcel Ziskind, he has Polish parents, but he is Danish. He and I and Carol got together, and I said, okay, we're going to find this farm well before we have to. I want to find it because I want to film there. I want to have these memories. And so we found the farm, and we started working together, and we were filming things. Some things we knew specifically we wanted to shoot certain things in landscape. But most of the time, we said, well, now we have the luxury of time. We won't have this time later. Now let's just see what we find. Let's keep our minds open. And then we would stop the car and go, hey, look at that. Let's go. And let's film that. We were looking at farms. We were trying to find farms, like maybe the inside of this one, the outside of this one, like you usually do in a movie. But then I realized, no, we're not going to have very much time. It's going to be winter. We need to find everything in one farm. So we were looking, and it took a while. One of the places we visited that we didn't end up using you know, we were filming, we were looking around at things to film, details, you know, like you see these first memory flashes of Willis's in the airplane bathroom. He sees a light bulb and some wallpaper, and these were things we found were interesting. I wanted to have a library, a collection of lots of images that I was going to use in the editing. As we were filming things, sometimes I would say, I know I'm going to use that and I know where. And other ones I was like, I'm not sure yet, but I have them for the editing, right? And one of the things I saw this nest with these little chicks in it, these birds. And I said to Marcel, look at that. That's beautiful. I bet the mother's going to come and feed them soon if we just wait. And he said, yeah, but we don't have a ladder or anything. What are we going to do? I said, well, jump on my shoulders. He goes, you sure? I go, yeah. So he got up on my shoulders with the camera, and we're standing there. I'm sort of wobbling, and I say, and he goes, stand still. I go, I'm trying. So then we got really still. And I said, well, he goes, well, she's not coming. Well, should we get down? I said, no, not yet. Let's wait. And we waited. And then suddenly she showed up. She went up and she did that thing and then flew away. And I said, did you get that? He says, I think so. Let's wait and see if she comes back. So we did it a couple times. And actually, the first one was the best one. But that was him on my shoulders filming that. And we were so happy. And I said, that's really great. That's the family. Somehow we're definitely using that. I know we'll use it. I'm not sure yet where, but we're going to use that. And it turned out we used it at the end, but it kind of does tie things together, like the person asking the question said. It's definitely, you can read a lot of things into a simple thing like that, and it was like a gift, you know, that we found that. And it was I loved being able to do this. Is one of my favorite, I'm glad you pointed out, it's one of my favorite images in the whole movie, that one.
There was one more question.
But you have to be, you know, this speaks to the fact that, yes, you have to be lucky, but you have to be working, you have to be preparing so that you recognize something as being lucky. If we were busy thinking about other things, we would have walked by and said, oh, look, a nest, yeah, so what? And walked by looking for something else. But we both realized that there was something of value in that nest and those little baby birds, because we were thinking about the story. In other words, luck may come your way, but you need to prepare for luck to happen so that you can recognize it when you see it. Like as an actor, you know, you have long periods where you don't have any work. Well, you have to sort of work on yourself, whether it's reading or thinking creatively, so your engine is kind of lubricated. So when suddenly somebody offers you a job, you're not like, oh, I haven't done any thinking about acting or art for years. I don't know if I can do it anymore. It's like, no, if you're constantly thinking creatively, you're working, you're keeping yourself in training like an athlete, you know? So anyway, yeah, be ready for luck.
Okay, so firstly, yes, great movie from me as well, thank you. And I want to know, in the scene where Willis is lying in bed in the hospital after his operation, it looks like he's reading a book about mushrooms, I think. And like, out of all the books in the world, why mushrooms? Because it just doesn't fit with the whole image of Willis.
I'll let Willis tell you. I'll let Lance tell you what he thinks about it first, and then I'll answer.
Yeah, mushrooms. I think as you get older, I mean really older, like Willis, and beat up, physically problems, you look more like a mushroom than other things. I know that's shallow, but Viggo brought it up. He showed me the book, and I went, perfect. It's great.
Well, there's a little story behind that. I have a photograph. There's a little story behind the mushroom book. I have a photograph of my father when he was actually in the hospital, in a hospital bed, and he's holding that book. He's not reading it. It's on his lap, and he's like smiling, laughing because he's on some kind of drugs, you know, that they gave him after an operation. And he's like happy, and he has this book open on his chest, and it says American Mushrooms, or whatever the book, Smithsonian Book of Mushrooms. And it's this academic sort of book about mushrooms. And I thought, wow, that's so funny. And I love that picture. And so then we kind of copied that picture a little bit, you know. But it was kind of, yeah, it's a kind of a nod to, I'd forgotten about that because nobody's asked that question, but yeah. But I also thought it was funny. It's just funny with everything we know, like you said, everything we've seen Willis do and say through his movie. And now he's he's sitting reading a book about mushrooms. What did he do? He asked John to bring this special book for him. It's like, who knew that he was interested in mushrooms? But you know, he's interested in nature, so why not? I mean, that's why my dad was reading that book, because he was interested in the. He actually said to me, "Can you bring me that book about mushrooms? I left it at the house." I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
It's funny.
you know, there's a whole element here of things that are brought up, which are, you know, the divisions between eras of young people and older people, and the element is, I think, because of the control that the parents exert over the kids, and it could be great control or crappy control or just a, you know, oppression. So that when the kids start breaking away, the first thing that happens is they start responding to each other. I'm being seen and heard. And it feels like such a relief that they move on track to develop. And I know that happened to me because I was almost silent for years because I had been bludgeoned a little too much. And then when I was seen and heard by others, it was like a celebration.
By artists, by actors?
Actors. Well, actors, then it turned to actors. And acting is being seen and heard, no matter where you came from or what your story is. You know, so it's a pretty.
Was it artists generally? I mean, painters, you know, was it artists mostly?
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
Mm.
And I think that's a big thing that kept me in it for a long time now, almost 45 years. So my first movies were terrible. God, I was so bad.
No. There was always something interesting going on, I think, always. But I know it's hard to look at I mean, I look at my early stuff and it's like, oh my God. But it was something.
But fired. I never got fired, so.
That's good. You never got fired. I got fired once, gently, from a play. Yeah. One day I was asked not to come in for rehearsal. I said, why not? We're not rehearsing today? No, you're not rehearsing today.
Oh, no. No.
It took me a while to get over that.
I think I'll show you once again the audience to say goodbye to you and thank you for not only this great film, but this great talk also. Thank you so much. Okay, I'll show you the audience.
Look at that.
Look at this. Wow.
And up top, too, in the balcony. It's big. That's nice. See that. Thank you. What a great audience. They watched our movie for 2 hours and then they listened to us talking and talked with us for another hour. That's a lot of endurance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. All right, my friend.
All right. I'm going to go. I'm going to put a heart on there.
All right. How did you do that? Oh, there it is.
At the bottom. Put one on yours.
Yeah, here goes. Come on.
All right.
There it is. Oh,
I'm
no,
gonna go to bed, man. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. I'll see you. Thank you. Yay, look. Beautiful.